The clock tower of Kensington Palace struck 11:30 as Sergeant Michael Torres completed his evening rounds through the East Wing corridors. The ancient stone walls seemed to absorb the sound of his polished boots against the marble floors, creating an almost ghostly echo that had become familiar after 3 years of night duty. Tonight felt different somehow, though he couldn't quite place why. Michael had joined the Royal Protection unit straight from his military service in Afghanistan, where his quick reflexes and sharp instincts had saved countless lives. The transition from combat zones to palace security had been challenging at first, but he'd grown to appreciate the responsibility of protecting the royal family, especially the younger members who reminded him of his own niece back home, Princess. Charlotte's wing of the palace was always his final stop during evening rounds. At 8 years old, she was known throughout the staff for her spirited personality and curious nature. Unlike her brothers, she often stayed up past her bedtime reading adventure books with a flashlight under her covers. The night staff had grown accustomed to seeing the faint glow from beneath her door well past 9 o'clock. As Michael approached the princess's corridor, he noticed something unusual. The hallway, which was typically dimly lit by ornate wall sconces, seemed darker than normal. One of the lights appeared to be flickering intermittently, casting strange shadows that danced across the portraits of long-deceased royals lining the walls. He made a mental note to report the maintenance issue in the morning. The princess's personal protection officer, Officer Sarah Chun, was stationed at her usual post near the main entrance to Charlotte's private quarters. Sarah had been with the family for 5 years and had developed an almost maternal protective instinct toward the young princess. She looked up from her security tablet as Michael approached, offering a quiet nod of acknowledgement. "Everything quiet tonight?" Michael whispered, maintaining the hushed tone that was standard protocol during evening hours. "Peaceful as always," Sarah replied, though her eyes held a hint of concern. "Though I thought I heard some movement about 20 minutes ago. Probably just Charlotte adjusting in her sleep." Michael nodded, understanding the hypervigilance that came with protecting children. Every small sound became significant when you were responsible for someone's safety. He'd learned during his military service that trusting your instincts, even when they seemed to be reacting to nothing, was often the difference between preventing an incident and responding to one. As he prepared to continue his rounds to the Central Security Office, a sound froze him in place. It was faint at first, almost like the wind whistling through the old palace windows. But as he strained to listen, the sound became more distinct and infinitely more alarming. It was screaming, high-pitched, terrified screaming that seemed to be coming from the direction of Princess Charlotte's bedroom. The sound cut through the silence of the palace like a knife, sending an immediate surge of adrenaline through both guards. Sarah was already moving before Michael could react, her hand instinctively reaching for her radio while she rushed toward the princess's door. Michael was right behind her, his military training kicking in as his mind rapidly assessed potential threats. The screaming continued, growing more intense and desperate with each passing second. "This is Officer Chun requesting immediate backup to Princess Charlotte's quarters." Sarah spoke rapidly into her radio while trying the door handle. "We have a possible emergency situation." The door was locked, which was standard protocol, but the screaming from inside was becoming more frantic. Michael could hear what sounded like furniture being moved or knocked over, followed by more terrified cries from the young princess. "Override authorization needed immediately," Michael called into his own radio, already pulling out his emergency access key. Protocol required 2 officers for entry into royal quarters, but the distress in Charlotte's voice left no room for procedural delays. As they prepared to enter, Michael's mind raced through possibilities. Had someone managed to breach the palace security? Was the princess having a medical emergency? His training had prepared him for various scenarios, but the protection of children always carried an extra weight of responsibility that made every second feel crucial. Sarah positioned herself on one side of the door while Michael prepared to unlock it. The screaming had momentarily stopped, replaced by what sounded like whimpering and the rustle of bedsheets. Both guards exchanged a look of shared determination. "On 3, Michael whispered. his hand steady on the key despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. The corridor suddenly felt charged with tension, as backup units could be heard responding from other parts of the palace. Footsteps echoed from multiple directions as the royal protection team mobilized with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, the quiet evening routine had transformed into a full emergency response. Michael turned the key and slowly pushed the door open, immediately scanning the room for threats while Sarah prepared to provide cover. The princess's room was elegantly decorated with pink and gold accents, filled with books, toys, and the kind of childhood treasures that made her seem like any other 8-year-old girl. Despite her royal status, what they found inside would challenge every assumption they'd made about the source of the screaming and forever change how they understood responsibility of protecting not just a princess, but a brave young girl whose quick thinking was about to prove invaluable. The next few minutes would test every aspect of their training while revealing that sometimes the greatest threats come from the most unexpected places, and that courage can be found in the smallest and most unlikely heroes. Princess Charlotte stood pressed against her bedroom window, her small hands gripping the heavy curtains as she peered down into the palace gardens below. Her face was pale with fear, and tears streaked down her cheeks, but she wasn't looking at Michael and Sarah. Her attention was completely focused on something outside. "Princess, what's wrong?" Sarah asked gently, immediately moving to Charlotte's side while scanning the room for any signs of intrusion or danger. "There's a man in the gardens," Charlotte whispered, her voice trembling but surprisingly clear. "He's been watching my window for a long time. When I tried to turn on my lamp to see better, he started climbing the wall." Michael felt his blood run cold. The palace gardens were supposed to be completely secure, patrolled regularly, and monitored by an extensive camera system. How had someone managed to get close enough to the building to attempt scaling the walls? He immediately moved to the window, positioning himself so he could see outside while staying out of direct view from below. What he saw made his military instincts snap into full alert mode. A figure dressed in dark clothing was indeed climbing the exterior wall, using some kind of equipment that allowed him to scale the stone surface with practiced ease. "Control. This is Sergeant Torres." Michael spoke urgently into his radio while gesturing for Sarah to move Charlotte away from the window. "We have a confirmed intruder attempting to breach the east wing exterior wall. Subject is currently scaling the building toward Princess Charlotte's quarters." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within seconds, the palace's entire security system activated. Floodlights illuminated the gardens as armed response units mobilized from multiple positions. The sound of running footsteps echoed through the corridors as additional protection officers rushed to secure the area, but the intruder was faster than anyone had anticipated. Michael watched in alarm as the figure reached Charlotte's floor level and began working on the window mechanism. Whoever this person was, they had clearly studied the palace layout extensively and came prepared with specialized equipment. "Princess, we need to move you to the safe room immediately," Sarah said, gently but firmly taking Charlotte's hand. "Can you walk with us quickly?" Charlotte nodded, showing remarkable composure for an 8-year-old facing such a terrifying situation. "Should I bring my emergency bag?" she asked, referring to a small backpack that all royal children were taught to keep ready with essential items. "Yes, good thinking," Michael replied, impressed by her presence of mind. The royal children received age-appropriate security training, but seeing Charlotte actually apply it under real pressure was remarkable. As Charlotte grabbed her emergency bag, a loud metallic sound came from the window. The intruder had successfully opened the outer security latch and was now working on the main window lock. Michael realized they had perhaps 30 seconds before the person would gain entry to the room. "Move now," he commanded, ushering both Charlotte and Sarah toward the door. As they reached the corridor, backup officers arrived, immediately taking protective positions around the princess. "Safe room protocol," Michael announced to the team. "Fast but careful." The group moved swiftly through the palace corridors toward the secure room designed specifically for such emergencies. Charlotte stayed close to Sarah, her small legs working hard to keep up with the adult's pace. but she never complained or slowed them down. Behind them, they could hear the sound of the window being forced open, followed by heavy footsteps in Charlotte's bedroom. The intruder was now inside the palace. "Subject has breached the perimeter," came the voice through Michael's radio. "Multiple units converging on the east wing." As they reached the safe room, Michael couldn't help but think about how the intruder had known exactly which window led to Charlotte's bedroom. The level of planning and knowledge required suggested this wasn't a random break-in attempt, but something much more calculated and dangerous. The safe room was a marvel of modern security technology disguised as an elegant sitting room. Hidden behind what appeared to be a bookshelf was a reinforced steel door that could withstand significant force. Inside, the room contained communication equipment, supplies, and comfortable seating designed to keep royal family members safe during extended security incidents. "Princess Charlotte is secure," Sarah announced into her radio as the heavy door sealed behind them. Charlotte settled into one of the comfortable chairs, still clutching her emergency bag. Despite everything that had just happened, she looked up at Michael with curious eyes rather than fear. "Will you catch the bad man?" she asked with a directness that only children possess. "Our team is very good at their job," Michael replied honestly. "But right now, the most important thing is keeping you safe." Through the safe room's communication system, they could monitor the security response throughout the palace. Teams were systematically searching every room and corridor where the intruder might have gone after discovering Charlotte's empty bedroom. What none of them realized, yet, was that Charlotte's quick thinking and brave decision to alert the guards had prevented something far more serious than a simple break-in attempt. The man scaling the palace walls was part of a larger plan that would have put not just Charlotte, but several members of the royal family in extreme danger. The real test of everyone's training and dedication was just beginning, and Charlotte's role in the night's events was far from over. Inside the safe room, Charlotte surprised everyone by pulling out a small notebook from her emergency bag. "I wrote down everything I saw," she said matter-of-factly, opening to a page covered in her careful 8-year-old handwriting. Michael and Sarah exchanged glances of amazement. While most children her age would have been paralyzed with fear, Charlotte had somehow found the presence of mind to document what she witnessed. "Can you tell us what you wrote?" Sarah asked gently, settling beside the princess on one of the comfortable chairs. "Well," Charlotte began, consulting her notes like a professional witness, "I couldn't sleep because I heard strange noises outside about 30 minutes ago. Not normal garden sounds. So I looked out my window very carefully, like you taught us in our safety lessons." Michael leaned forward, impressed by her attention to detail. The royal children received regular security briefings appropriate for their ages, but Charlotte seemed to have absorbed every lesson. "The man wasn't trying to hide at first," Charlotte continued. "He was doing something with the security cameras. I saw him use a special tool on the box near the big oak tree. Then he looked up at my window for a really long time, like he was studying it." This information sent a chill through both guards. If the intruder had disabled external cameras, it explained how he'd gotten so close to the building without triggering the usual alert systems. "Did you see anything else about him?" Michael asked, speaking into his radio to relay the camera information to the central security team. Charlotte nodded seriously. "He had a big backpack and what looked like mountain climbing gear, and he moved like he knew exactly where he was going. Like when Papa walks through the palace, confident and purposeful." Her observation skills were remarkable. Michael made a mental note to ensure Charlotte received recognition for her quick thinking once this situation was resolved. Through the communication system, they could hear the coordinated search continuing throughout the palace. So far, the teams had found evidence of the intrusion in Charlotte's room, including climbing equipment left behind, but no sign of the intruder himself. "This is command," came a voice through the speakers. "We've discovered that 3 external cameras were disabled using sophisticated electronic equipment. The subject appears to have extensive technical knowledge." Charlotte looked up from her notebook. "There's more," she said quietly. "Before he started climbing, he talked to someone on a small radio. I couldn't hear the words, but it looked like he was getting instructions. This revelation changed everything. If the intruder was part of a coordinated team, the threat level had just escalated significantly. Michael immediately relayed this crucial information to the command center. "All units, be advised we may be dealing with multiple subjects," came the response. "Expanding search parameters and increasing perimeter security." Sarah noticed that despite the gravity of the situation, Charlotte remained remarkably calm. "Aren't you scared, Princess?" she asked with genuine concern. Charlotte considered this question seriously before answering. "A little bit," she admitted. "But you and Sergeant Torres are here, and I know all the other guards are working hard to keep everyone safe. Besides, Granny always says that being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do the right thing even when you are afraid." Her wisdom and composure were extraordinary for someone so young. Michael found himself thinking that the royal family's emphasis on preparing their children for real-world challenges, while maintaining their childhood innocence, had clearly been effective. Suddenly an alarm began sounding throughout the palace. The communication system crackled to life with urgent voices coordinating a new development. All units. We have movement detected in the West Wing near the state apartments. Multiple heat signatures showing on thermal imaging." Charlotte looked up with concern. "That's where Uncle William and Aunt Catherine stay when they visit," she said, showing her detailed knowledge of the palace layout. Michael felt his stomach tighten. If this was indeed a coordinated attack targeting multiple family members, Charlotte's alert had potentially saved not just her own life, but possibly prevented a much larger catastrophe. "Princess," he said, turning to face her directly, "you may have prevented something very serious tonight. Your quick thinking to call for help when you first saw the intruder was exactly the right thing to do." Through the speakers, they could hear the security teams converging on the West Wing. The sound of tactical units moving with practiced precision filled the communication channels as the full scope of the threat began to unfold. "Command to all units," came an authoritative voice. "We have confirmation of multiple subjects. This appears to be a coordinated intrusion attempt." Switching to Code Red protocols, Charlotte carefully closed her notebook and looked at both guards with determination rather than fear. "What can I do to help?" she asked, displaying the kind of courage that reminded everyone present why protecting the royal family was considered such an honor. What they couldn't know was that Charlotte's brave actions had disrupted a carefully planned operation that had been months in the making, and that the night's events were far from over. The Code Red protocols transformed the palace into a fortress within minutes. Emergency lighting activated throughout the building, casting everything in an urgent red glow, while steel barriers automatically descended over critical windows and entrances. Michael could hear the distinctive sound of the palace's lockdown system engaging as blast doors sealed strategic corridors. "Princess Charlotte, you're helping more than you know just by staying calm and safe," Sarah assured her, though both guards could see the concern in the young girl's eyes as she processed the seriousness of the alarms around them. Through the secure communication system, updates flooded in from teams throughout the palace. The West Wing thermal signatures had revealed 3 additional intruders who had somehow penetrated the building's defenses through what appeared to be a coordinated multi-point entry strategy. "How did they know so much about our security?" Charlotte asked, demonstrating an understanding that impressed both guards. Her question reflected exactly what Michael was thinking. This level of coordination suggested inside knowledge or extensive surveillance. Before anyone could answer, a new voice came through the communication system. It was Commander Harrison, the head of Royal Protection, speaking directly to all units with calm authority despite the crisis. "All teams. We've identified this as Operation Nightshade, an intelligence operation we've been tracking for several months. The subjects are highly trained professionals attempting to access sensitive areas of the palace. They are not random intruders." Charlotte's eyes widened slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Like spies in my adventure books?" she asked quietly. "Something like that," Michael confirmed. impressed by her ability to process complex situations in terms she could understand. The revelation that this was part of a larger intelligence operation explained the sophisticated equipment and detailed knowledge the intruders possessed. Michael's military background helped him appreciate the level of planning required to coordinate such an attempt against one of the world's most secure locations. "Sergeant Torres," came Commander Harrison's voice specifically addressing him through his earpiece. "We need Princess Charlotte to remain in the safe room, but we also need her detailed observations about the timing and coordination she witnessed. Can she provide more specific information about when she first noticed suspicious activity?" Michael looked at Charlotte, who had been listening intently to everything around her. "Princess, the commander would like to know more about exactly when you first saw the man outside. Can you remember the specific time?" Charlotte consulted her notebook again, flipping to an earlier page. "I started writing things down at 11:15 when I heard the first strange noise. The man appeared near the cameras at 11:18. He spent about 5 minutes working on something there. Then he looked at my window and talked on his radio at 11:25. Her precision was remarkable. These timestamps could help the security teams establish a timeline for how the coordinated attack had unfolded and potentially predict what the intruder's next moves might be." "And when did he start climbing?" Sarah asked, taking notes of her own. 11:31, Charlotte replied without hesitation. "That's when I got really scared and decided to scream for help." Michael felt a surge of admiration for the young princess. Her decision to call for help had likely disrupted the entire operation's timeline, giving the security forces crucial extra minutes to respond effectively through the communication system. They heard updates as teams successfully cornered 2 of the 3 additional intruders in the West Wing. The professional coordination of the palace security forces was evident as they methodically cleared each area while ensuring the safety of any royal family members and residents. "This is Team Alpha," came a voice through the speakers. 2 subjects in custody. They were attempting to access the document storage areas in the West Wing administrative offices. Charlotte looked puzzled. "Why would spies want boring paperwork?" she asked. "Sometimes information on paper can be more valuable than money or jewels," Michael explained, realizing that this attempted breach was likely focused on intelligence gathering rather than harm to family members. "Command to all units," came another announcement. 3rd subject believed to be attempting exit through East Wing service tunnels. All perimeter teams maintain positions. The service tunnels were part of the palace's historical infrastructure, used by staff to move discreetly throughout the building without disrupting royal activities. If an intruder knew about them, it confirmed the level of detailed intelligence the operation had gathered. Charlotte suddenly looked up with a concerned expression. "The service tunnels connect to the old wine cellars, don't they? And those connect to the heating system tunnels that go under the whole palace." Both Michael and Sarah stared at her in surprise. Her knowledge of the palace's layout was more comprehensive than either had realized. "How do you know about the tunnel connections?" Sarah asked. "I like to explore," Charlotte said with a slight smile. "And the palace historians love to tell stories about how people used to move around secretly during the old days. Plus, I pay attention during our emergency evacuation practice sessions. Her information could be crucial." Michael immediately relayed Charlotte's knowledge about the tunnel system connections to the command center, potentially giving the security teams a significant advantage in tracking the remaining intruder. "Outstanding work, Princess," came Commander Harrison's voice directly through their communication system. "Your observations have been invaluable tonight." Charlotte beamed with pride, but quickly became serious again. "I hope everyone stays safe," she said, showing that despite her courage and helpfulness, she remained a caring child concerned about the people protecting her and her family. Charlotte's knowledge about the tunnel connections proved to be the key breakthrough the security teams needed. Within 15 minutes of her providing the information, tactical units had positioned themselves at strategic points throughout the underground network. effectively trapping the final intruder. Target acquired in Section C of the service tunnel network, came the announcement through their communication system. Subject is in custody. All clear. The relief in the safe room was palpable, but Michael knew that the resolution of the immediate threat was only the beginning of what would be a comprehensive investigation into how such a sophisticated operation had been planned against the palace. "Is it over?" Charlotte asked, though she seemed to already know the answer from the change in tone of the radio communications around them. "The immediate danger is over," Sarah confirmed. "But there will be lots of questions and investigations to make sure nothing like this can happen again." Charlotte nodded seriously. "Like when something goes wrong in science class, and we have to figure out what happened so we can do the experiment better next time." Her ability to relate complex situations to her everyday experiences continued to amaze both guards. It also reminded them that despite her remarkable composure and helpfulness during the crisis, she was still an 8-year-old girl who had just experienced something that would have been traumatic for many adults. Commander Harrison's voice came through the communication system, addressing their safe room directly. "Sergeant Torres, Officer Chun, and Princess Charlotte, outstanding work tonight. Princess, your alertness and detailed observations were crucial to our successful response. The all clear has been given," he continued. "However, we'll be maintaining elevated security protocols for the remainder of the night and conducting a full facility review over the next several days." As the immediate lockdown began to lift, Michael found himself reflecting on how the evening had unfolded. Charlotte's quick thinking had not only prevented what could have been a serious security breach, but had also provided crucial intelligence that helped capture all 4 intruders involved in the operation. "Can I see my parents?" Charlotte asked, the first time she had expressed any personal need throughout the entire ordeal. "They're actually on their way here right now," Sarah replied, having received word through her earpiece that the Prince and Princess of Wales had been immediately notified and were returning to the palace under heavy security escort. Within minutes, the safe room door opened to admit Charlotte's parents, both clearly shaken but trying to maintain calm demeanors for their daughter's sake. The reunion was emotional but brief, as everyone understood that there would be extensive debriefings and security reviews to follow. "I'm so proud of you for being brave and smart," her mother said, embracing Charlotte tightly. "You did exactly what you were taught to do." Her father looked at Michael and Sarah with deep gratitude. "Thank you for protecting our daughter and for listening to her observations. It sounds like her alertness prevented something much worse." "Princess Charlotte was remarkable, sir," Michael replied honestly. "Her presence of mind and detailed attention to what she observed were crucial to our response." As they prepared to leave the safe room, Charlotte tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Sergeant Torres," she said quietly, "will you make sure to tell everyone that the guards who caught the bad people were really brave too? I know everyone will talk about what I did, but you were all the ones who actually stopped them." Her concern for ensuring that others received proper recognition for their courage showed a maturity and consideration that went far beyond her years. Michael realized that the royal family's emphasis on service and thinking of others had been deeply absorbed by this remarkable young girl. "I promise I'll make sure everyone knows it was a team effort," he assured her. As they made their way back through the palace corridors, now bustling with investigation teams and additional security personnel, Charlotte walked between her parents with confidence rather than fear. She had faced a genuinely dangerous situation and had responded with courage, intelligence, and concern for others. The attempted infiltration would become the subject of extensive investigation by multiple intelligence agencies. The sophistication of the operation, the detailed knowledge the intruders possessed, and the coordination of their attempt would lead to discoveries about a larger espionage network that had been operating for months. But for Michael, the most important outcome was simpler. A brave young girl had trusted her instincts, acted quickly when faced with danger, and helped prevent what could have been a much more serious threat to her family and the institution they represented. As Charlotte disappeared into the royal quarters with her parents. Surrounded by additional security, Michael couldn't help but think that the future of the monarchy was in very capable hands, even if those hands still belonged to an 8-year-old who carried a notebook in her emergency bag and paid attention during fire drills. 3 weeks after the incident, Michael stood in the same corridor where he had first heard Charlotte's screams, but everything had changed. New security measures had been implemented throughout the palace. Cameras had been upgraded with anti-tampering technology, and additional patrol routes had been established to prevent any similar intrusions. The investigation into Operation Nightshade had revealed a sophisticated espionage network that had been gathering intelligence about royal schedules, security procedures, and palace layouts for over 6 months. The 4 captured intruders were part of a larger organization that had been attempting to access classified documents related to state visits and diplomatic communications. Charlotte's role in disrupting their plans had been more significant than anyone initially realized. The timing of her alert had prevented the team from accessing critical intelligence that could have compromised future royal security arrangements and diplomatic operations. "Sergeant Torres?" came a familiar voice from behind him. He turned to see Charlotte approaching with her usual confident walk, though now accompanied by a discreet additional security detail that had become her constant shadow since the incident. "Good evening, Princess," he replied, noting that she carried the same small notebook that had proven so valuable 3 weeks earlier. "I wanted to thank you again," she said seriously, "and I wanted to give you something." She handed him a carefully drawn picture showing stick figures in uniform, standing around a building that was clearly meant to be the palace. At the bottom, in her precise 8-year-old handwriting, were the words, "The best guards in the world." "This is wonderful," Michael said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "But you know that you were the real hero that night, don't you?" Charlotte shook her head firmly. "Heroes work together," she said with the kind of wisdom that continued to surprise everyone who knew her. "I did my part, but everyone else did the hard part of actually catching the bad people and keeping everyone safe." Her perspective on teamwork and shared responsibility showed remarkable maturity. Michael had heard from other staff members that Charlotte had insisted on writing thank you notes to every single security officer who had been involved in the response that night, learning their names and specific contributions to ensure her gratitude was personal and meaningful. "I have something else to tell you," Charlotte continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "I've been working on a new project." She opened her notebook to a page titled Palace Safety Observations and showed him detailed diagrams and notes about various areas of the building she had noticed during her daily activities. "I've been paying extra attention during my walks around the palace," she explained. "I thought maybe if I keep track of things that seem different or unusual, it might help the security teams notice problems before they become bigger problems." Michael was amazed by her initiative. Rather than being traumatized by her experience, Charlotte had chosen to become an active participant in her own protection and that of her family. "Have you discussed this with your parents?" he asked, knowing that her enhanced awareness needed to be balanced with allowing her to remain a normal child. "Oh, yes," Charlotte replied. "Mama said it was a good way to be helpful as long as I remember that the grown-ups are the ones responsible for actually handling any problems. And Papa said that being observant about my surroundings is a valuable life skill, whether I'm at the palace or anywhere else." Her parents' approach impressed Michael. They had found a way to channel Charlotte's natural alertness and desire to contribute into something constructive while maintaining appropriate boundaries. "Commander." Harrison appeared at the end of the corridor, approaching with a purposeful stride that Michael recognized. "Princess Charlotte." "Sergeant Torres," he greeted them both formally. "Princess, I have some news I thought you'd like to hear personally." Charlotte looked up attentively, her notebook still clutched in her hands. "The investigation into the people who broke into the palace has been completed," Commander Harrison continued. "The information we gathered that night, including your detailed observations, helped investigators discover and stop a much larger operation that could have affected not just our security, but the security of other important government buildings. Charlotte's eyes widened with interest rather than fear. So stopping them here stopped other bad things from happening other places? Exactly, the commander confirmed. Your quick thinking and brave actions had consequences far beyond just that one night? Michael watched Charlotte process this information with the same serious consideration she brought to everything else. She nodded thoughtfully before speaking. That's good, she said simply. But I hope this means all the guards everywhere can be a little safer now, too. Her continued concern for others, even after learning about the broader impact of her actions, reinforced Michael's belief that Charlotte possessed the kind of character that would serve her well regardless of what challenges life might bring. As Commander Harrison departed and Charlotte prepared to return to her evening routine, she looked up at Michael one more time. Sergeant Torres, she said, if something like this ever happens again, I know I can count on you and all the other guards to keep everyone safe. And we know we can count on you to be alert and brave, Michael replied, meaning every word. As Charlotte walked away, flanked by her security detail but moving with the confident stride of someone who had faced real danger and emerged stronger, Michael reflected on the profound lesson the 8-year-old princess had taught everyone involved. True courage wasn't about the absence of fear, but about doing the right thing despite being afraid. It was about teamwork, attention to detail, and caring about the safety and well-being of others. These were qualities that Charlotte had displayed in abundance. During those terrifying minutes when the palace came under attack, the night had changed more than just security procedures. It had revealed the remarkable character of a young girl who would someday inherit tremendous responsibility, and had shown that she was already developing the wisdom and courage necessary to handle whatever challenges that future might bring. Michael resumed his evening rounds with renewed appreciation for his role in protecting not just a royal family, but individuals whose character and courage made that protection both an honor and a privilege.